Hi, my name is Mark Biernat. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I'm going to give a message, and my message is stay strong, Ukraine. Ukraine, help is on the way. As much as it seems like it isn't, it is. Let me explain. First, I want to tell you a story. 1967, March 1st, second season, 23rd episode, the Omega Glory, Star Trek, the original series. It's not like I'm a Trekkie or anything. Kirk and the Enterprise encounter Omega 4 planet, and the Exeter, Captain Ronald Tracy, was on the planet, and he was involved in a situation, we'll call it a geopolitical situation, between these two factions. One country was called the Yangs, and the other country was called the Coms. Okay? Now, at the end, the Yangs reclaimed their land, what was rightfully and truly theirs. And I don't know how long it went on, but they reclaimed it. And Captain Tracy, who sided with the Coms, noted that they're more passive, more obedient, more loyal to their leader, more, in his words, civilized. And no matter how much firepower he gave them, he said he drained 4 power phasers that dawn. The Yangs were chaotic. The Yangs were independent in their tactics. They were almost savage. They would go out into open and draw the Coms out and then attack from another side. They were clever. They were unpredictable. And eventually they won. At the end of this story, you see that the Yangs, or it's in a parallel universe or a planet, are the Yanks. They loved freedom, and you cannot stamp that freedom out. And I'm going to explain why. And the Coms are obviously the communists, or anything that will say Eurasian, Moscow, China. They were obedient and passive. You cannot stamp freedom out of the human condition. And that's why I say Ukraine stay strong. Freedom is ingrained in the human condition. Some people say loyalty is the highest good, but they're really talking about loyalty to your ideals, like to something to justice. That's another conversation. It isn't. Justice and freedom. And that's what Ukraine is going for. You can't stamp out this idea of freedom in human, because think about human evolution. When we initially became life on this planet, we were one-celled organisms, all circulating around. Why would one organism join with another? It had to do with mitochondrial specialization. One would actually become, in essence, the mitochondrial specialist, and the other would gather food or something. And so we developed over millions and millions, billions, into these complex organisms called humans. But at this point, in this year and in this time, humans are not going to biologically fuse with another human. That is the idea with Moscow, that they all fuse into this one obedient, organism metaphorically. Ukraine doesn't work like that. They're freedom-oriented. They're chaotic in their tactics. Moscow might even call them savage. In Star Trek, they called them wild men. But maybe that's a compliment, because I cannot see a human fusing literally with another human voluntarily. It's ingrained in our nature that we are complete, specialized units at this time in history. And not to be free is contrary to billion years of human evolution. It's just against human life. So this freedom as a value cannot be stamped out. So I say, stay strong, Ukraine. Poland was occupied in World War II, 1939 to 1945. They never surrendered. There's a difference. You can be occupied but never surrendered. And they did get their freedom. And it's a beautiful, great place here. Ukraine, do not give up your land. Do not negotiate. The key words out there are find a solution, negotiate, peace. This is all Moscow propaganda words for submit a population. And I remind you what Ferdinand Foch, the French general in World War I said, "This is not a peace, it's an armistice for 20 years. Ukraine, you cannot give up your freedom just because the US or some Western power is encouraging you." In fact, I would say Ukraine, the US needs you a zillion times more than you need them. I'm an American too, and I'm proud to be. Stay strong with these new permissions, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about, to strike in the heart of the enemy, the invaders. There's a lot of changes coming down the pipe. And why do I say help is on the way? As much as I criticize Trump and his administration for the gathering of the people who are against, these Moscow talking points, the guy is no businessman. A score of his businesses have gone bankrupt. He's $1.8 billion in debt personally. But one thing he does do is he sides with winners. And if Ukraine can show resistance, you never know which way he might flip. So, the US is not totally out of it yet. So I respect Ukrainian values. A lot of times people think Ukraine is called borderland. That's not true. It's totally untrue. That's a propaganda from Moscow. They say it's O Ukraina. It's U Ukraina. It's the land. It's our land. No country is going to say, we're a borderland. The United States is really a borderland of Mexico or a borderland of Canada. No, or they're going to say, this is our land, America. Okay? So if you look at Old Slavic, it never, ever was that. Ukraine meant our land. Okay? And it is their land. You could argue that it's even larger than the 1991 borders. But let's just say the 1991 borders. Stay strong, Ukraine. Don't give up. Your values are the Russians can't even process the values of Ukraine because, like I said, they're so freedom-minded, so chaotic, almost like wild men living in the bush. They can't cope with their tactics. Even if, Russia's smart and everything, big, strong, and they adapt, they can't because they mentally cannot understand this idea of freedom and the operation of freedom. So I keep on saying, stay strong, Ukraine. Every Ukrainian I meet, abroad or in the country, they're contributing in some way to the cause. Great unity in Ukraine. Great unity of Ukrainians living abroad. And certainly you have the unity, let's just say worst case, US is like turning their back, head in the sand. You've got the Central and Northern Alliance. Weren't the Vikings, all these countries, the Nordic countries, weren't they Vikings? They become very peaceful countries, but I wouldn't rise them and challenge them on that. What about Poland, Estonia? Didn't Poland, you could argue, between solidarity, like Valenza, the Pope, and didn't you start the fire that brought communism down? I wouldn't mess with the Central Northern Alliance. That alone, I said in my last video, it's triple or quadruple the GDP of Russia, and Russia's falling. The economy is collapsing. I'm an economist. People say, well, that's just his narrative. No, it isn't. I'm an economist. I'm a real economist. I'm not somebody who's a bachelor's or, just a master's or something. I'm a lifelong economist, okay? I know what I'm talking about. So no matter what happens, Ukraine, you stay strong. You're going to get your freedom, and it's going to be a beautiful place, not because of the material wealth and the prosperity that follows, and it will. It's because the value of freedom in Ukrainian society, along with justice, are the two highest values. In Russia, Moscow, it's being passive, and what can we do? We're just little people. Okay? It's such a radical departure, this idea of freedom and the way they operate, Ukrainians. That's why I know it'll be complete victory for Ukraine. My name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. Have a great day. Thank you very much.